Have you ever stopped to consider why the global quest for a stable supply of rare earth minerals could um, completely transform how we think about military readiness?
And not just military readiness, but also the whole future of electric vehicle manufacturing.
Exactly. It's kind of the ultimate strategic vulnerability right now, isn't it?
It really is. We're talking about the molecular building blocks of the 21st
And it's raw
century.
materials for everything
Yeah, everything from guided missiles right down to your smartphone battery. But the supply chain, it's dangerously concentrated,
in China.
overwhelmingly. And that imbalance has kicked off this massive, really urgent scramble among Western allies. They're trying to secure their own industrial futures, basically.
And that scramble is precisely why we need to unpack this recent U.S.-Australia critical minerals agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Canberra's been hailing it as, the most significant economic partnership with Washington in over a decade.
Big words.
Right. And at its core, the deal's supposed to be the key. The key to getting those essential materials, lithium, cobalt, nickel, rare earths, from somewhere other than China.
Okay, so our task today really is to get past the handshakes and the photo ops.
Yeah, cut through the noise.
Let's try and figure out the reality versus maybe the fantasy of this new agreement. Is this actually the industrial security cornerstone the West needs? Or is it something else?
Like maybe more of a strategic play by Australia.
Exactly. A way to firmly anchor its security relationship with the U.S., especially with that huge, expensive AUKUS pact hanging in the balance.
We're digging into the metals that quite literally power both Teslas and Tomahawks. The stakes, geopolitically, just couldn't be higher.
Okay, but before we get deeper into all that, just a reminder, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and support Geo9.
Definitely appreciate that. So let's start with the motivation. Why was Australia so, well, desperate for a deal?
They had some serious red flags waving, huge ones.
Right, even before this deal, Australian goods were getting hit with U.S. tariffs. 10% baseline, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was despite Australia actually running a trade deficit with the U.S.
Plus, they had those steep 50% tariffs on aluminum and steel. That global tariff hit them, too.
Which created a lot of economic anxiety in Canberra. Deep anxiety.
But the bigger fear, the sort of existential threat, was the uncertainty around AUKUS.
Oh, absolutely. A $250 billion deal for nuclear submarines. I mean, that's the biggest strategic commitment Australia has made in generations.
So when the previous U.S. administration suddenly put the whole thing under review,
It wasn't just concerning Canberra, it was alarm bells. Full-on panic, almost.
the fear being that an America First agenda, focused only on U.S. jobs and money, might just derail their biggest defense plan.
Precisely, leaving them strategically exposed.
Okay, so this minerals deal then became a calculated move, a big transactional win for Australia.
They knew what they were doing. They came to the table understanding the focus on economic metrics.
So they offered their huge mineral reserves, a reliable supplier, not China.
But they sweetened the pot, didn't they? They added that crucial financial layer.
The investment promise.
Yeah, a concrete commitment. Their massive sovereign wealth and private pension funds would ramp up investments in U.S. infrastructure and industry.
What was the number? Something like over $1.4 trillion by 2035.
That's the target. A huge surge of capital flowing straight into the U.S. economy. That kind of guaranteed cash flow. Hard to ignore.
And, well, the strategy clearly worked.
Seemed to. Once those tangible economic benefits were on the table, minerals and money, the leverage paid off instantly.
OSU suddenly got the full steam ahead status.
It was a stark demonstration, really. To secure that strategic alliance, Australia basically had to pay an economic premium.
Okay, this is where the story gets, well, really interesting.
Yeah.
And where the headlines maybe don't quite match the reality on the ground.
Right. The deal gets announced, and the rhetoric is just enormous.
We heard that promise, didn't we? That in a year, the U.S. would have so many critical minerals, you won't know what to do with them.
Classic political soundbite. Generates energy, but it kind of papers over the cracks.
Because here's the twist. The detail that made a lot of experts raise their eyebrows,
Yeah, go on.
it came out, reported by the New York Times, I think, that the Australian Prime Minister's office clarified the agreement wasn't actually legally binding.
Not legally binding or enforceable.
Think about that. If you're building multi-decade industrial resilience,
A handshake deal doesn't seem like the right foundation, does it? It seems counterproductive.
unless...
Well, unless you're dealing with a particularly unpredictable political partner, maybe trying for an ironclad legal contract could actually slow things down,
Right.
or even kill the immediate political goal.
So the non-binding nature might have been deliberate. A tactic.
Could be. A feature, not a bug, perhaps.
Mhm.
Tactical flexibility to secure the short-term win-saving AUKUs without getting bogged down in legal complexity. Keep the main player happy.
Hmm. And the skepticism only grows when you look at the money involved compared to what's actually needed, right?
Oh yeah, the numbers feel underwhelming at best. If the real goal is competing with China's dominance,
We're talking an $8.5 billion pipeline of projects to be discussed.
and maybe $3 billion to be invested in the next 6 months or so.
Okay, put that $3 billion in perspective for us.
Well, $3 billion is roughly the cost of, what, maybe 1 or 2 advanced nuclear submarines?
Right.
To build an entire resilient rare earth processing ecosystem from scratch, outside China, globally, you're talking hundreds of billions. Sustained long-term investment.
So this initial funding.
It's a necessary start, don't get me wrong,
Mm.
but it's a drop in the bucket compared to the scale of the challenge. True industrial competition needs way more fuel.
And you see that scale issue reflected in the specific projects they're highlighting, too.
Absolutely. Like Arafura Rare Earths Nolan's project up in the Northern Territory.
What's its projected output?
When it's fully operational, maybe 5% of global rare earth supply, which is important, definitely helps diversification.
It doesn't exactly shift the global balance.
Not fundamentally, no. Or look at the investment in that gallium separation plant in Western Australia.
Gallium, that's crucial for semiconductors, defense tech.
Vital. And China currently produces something like 99% of the world's supply. It's staggering.
And this new Australian plant is aiming for.
Around 10% of global supply eventually. Again, securing 10% is critical. It's a step. But it highlights the mountain Western nations have to climb.
Rebuilding sectors they just, well, let go of decades ago.
Exactly. They outsourced it.
Which brings us neatly to the real monumental hurdle here. China's midstream monopoly.
Yeah, this is the core issue.
Australia has incredible raw strength, right? Massive mineral reserves.
Definitely. Top 5 globally in rare earth oxides. They supply about half the world's lithium. They are a raw materials powerhouse, no question.
But and this is the crucial bit, what does that really mean in practice?
It means they've traditionally just been digging up the raw ore. Think of it like a giant quarry.
And then they ship it off.
Mostly unprocessed, mostly to China historically. Because China doesn't just have 70% of the reserves, they dominate the processing. Over 85% of the vital refining and chemical separation capacity. That's the bottleneck.
The processing part, that's the sticky wicket.
It really is. It's chemically intensive, it's environmentally messy flotation, leaching, separation, dealing with radioactive byproducts sometimes.
Not stuff you want in your backyard.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And Western nations, largely due to cost and those environmental concerns, were quite happy to outsource this dirty business to China over the last, say, 30 years.
And that decision allowed China to build
A completely vertically integrated rare earth ecosystem, a full stack operation. They control the chemical separation, the refining, the alloying, and critically, the specialized magnet manufacturing.
turning the dirt into the actual usable tech.
Precisely. Into those essential high-grade permanent magnets you need for advanced electric motors, wind turbines, fighter jet guidance systems, everything.
There's a real irony here, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. China's dominance created efficiency and scale that drove global prices down.
Which is great for us consumers. Cheaper iPhones, cheaper EVs.
Fantastic for consumers, but that very scale now makes it incredibly hard for newcomers, like these U.S.-Australian ventures, to compete on cost without massive ongoing government subsidies.
You're basically competing against decades of state-backed infrastructure build-out.
You got it. And this leads to what some call the last mile problem.
Go on.
Even if Australia successfully builds out more separation capacity and they're working on it, those refined rare earth oxides, they're still just powders.
They're not magnets yet.
Exactly. They're useless until they go through metallization and final magnet production.
Right.
And Australia doesn't currently have those advanced industrial processes at scale.
So the refined materials still have to be shipped somewhere else.
They have to be transported internationally to a facility that can turn that powder into a finished, usable magnet. And right now, China is still the dominant global player, the main buyer and producer of that final high-value component.
Okay, pausing here for a moment. If you're finding these insights useful, maybe take a second to subscribe to Geo9. It genuinely motivates me to keep sharing more research stories like this one.
So yeah, when you step back and look at the big picture, you have to see this deal realistically. It's a hedge.
A hedge against overconcentration.
Right. It's not an immediate replacement for China. Not even close. given their total control over that midstream processing.
China remains the main hub.
For at least the next decade, probably longer, this agreement is really about building some much-needed redundancy, some resilience. It's not about immediate decoupling.
What's really fascinating, though, is this sort of dual function of this deal.
Oh, so?
Well, it takes Australia's domestic strength, its huge mining sector, and turns it into a concrete instrument of alliance.
Ah, strategic glue.
Exactly. It's designed to anchor that U.S. security partnership, reduce the risk of political drift with AUKUS, especially important when facing unpredictable U.S. administrations.
Okay, now think about this from Australia's viewpoint, because they were walking a very, very fine line here.
A delicate balancing act.
Almost impossible, you could say. Economically, they are deeply intertwined with Beijing. China's their biggest trading partner, stable. Long-term contracts for iron ore, coal, lithium.
Can't just turn that tap off.
No way! But strategically, culturally, they're firmly bound to the Western axis, led by Washington. So they're trying to stay economically engaged with one major power while simultaneously building supply chain independence from that same power.
And that creates a massive risk, doesn't it? Retaliation.
Huge risk. Beijing tends to view any U.S. allied effort to deliberately redirect supply chains not just as economic diversification, but as strategic alignment against Chinese industry.
So the perception that Australia is actively helping the U.S. bypass Chinese manufacturing?
Could easily invite economic punishment. We've seen the playbook before, haven't we?
Barley, wine, coal.
Exactly. Those past trade disputes showed how quickly and forcefully Beijing can use economic levers for political ends.
So ultimately, this partnership feels necessary, but also symbolic.
I think that's fair. It's a vital first step, maybe, towards rebuilding that industrial resilience Western economies kind of carelessly let slide years ago.
But symbolism only gets you so far when you're up against hard market economics.
Precisely.
It's a big psychological step forward, you could argue.
Mm.
But we have to stay grounded, right?
Absolutely. The reality is because of China's overwhelming scale and efficiency, American industries and others will keep sourcing refined materials directly or indirectly from Chinese suppliers.
For the foreseeable future.
The foreseeable future. You just can't rewire these incredibly complex global supply chains overnight, or even within the lifespan of a non-binding agreement.
Okay, so that leaves us with a pretty big question for you, the listener, to mull over.
Considering everything, the highly political context, the non-binding nature of the deal, the sheer reality of China's decades of market leverage and capacity.
Is this deal truly an industrial breakthrough? Does it offer genuine peace of mind from China's dominance?
Or is it primarily a very pragmatic political gesture, something designed mainly to secure the stability of Australia's absolutely critical AUKUS security alliance?
So what's your take on all this? We genuinely love to hear your point of view in the comments below.
Yeah, let us know what you think. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to Geo9 so you don't miss future insights.